Yes, it is Halloween. And as you know from listening to this show, real life is actually scarier than fiction. So on tonight's show, we're going to cover some of the scariest things going on in our society today. Amazon is going to be cutting 600,000 jobs. Ah! The Republicans are going to try to gerrymander the maps here in Indiana and around the country so that they have a permanent MAGA majority. Ah! But first and foremost, we got some breaking news. We absolutely do. We got some breaking news here for a lot of people, not just in the state of Indiana, but for around the country. Let's get into it.
The federal government, and specifically the U.S. Department of Agriculture, also known as USDA, and Secretary Brooke Rollins. Using the current federal shutdown as a scapegoat, USDA has unlawfully suspended funds for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, for the first time in the program's history, informing state agencies that the federal government will withhold all November benefit payments. Trump and Rollins are cutting off benefits for more than 41 million Americans. 41 million Americans, red states and blue states, folks who rely on SNAP to put food on the table, even though there are billions of dollars in contingency funds and other funds that could be used to provide SNAP benefits during the shutdown. They are doing this on purpose. It is deliberate. It is intentional. They have the funds. They're just not using them. Trump and his administration are willing to put more than 41 million Americans at risk of hunger, at risk of food insecurity, at risk of malnutrition, if it gives them a new play in their twisted political game. They are playing politics while Americans go hungry.
Well, folks, we have breaking news here.
Policy. That's what this is about. It's intentional cruelty.
Oh, let me get
intentionally creating anxiety is the policy.
I didn't see Gavin Newsom here. Let's see what Gavin Newsom has to say.
Enough of this. Cruelty is the policy. That's what this is about. It's intentional cruelty, intentionally creating anxiety for millions and millions of people, 5.5 million here in our home state.
That was California Governor Gavin Newsom right there. I didn't see him coming at first, but they sued the Trump administration, and apparently a judge agreed with them, because just coming down the pipe, this is breaking news. I just read this right off the wires from the Associated Press. A judge has ordered the Trump administration to use emergency reserves for SNAP payments during the economic shutdown, the government shutdown, I'm sorry. Two federal judges have ruled nearly simultaneously on Friday that President Donald Trump, his administration, must continue to pay for SNAP, the nation's largest food program, using emergency reserve funds during the government shutdown. We'd heard that they had a contingency fund, and that the Trump administration was saying, nah, we don't want to use it. Well, the judge is saying you have to use it. These judges are in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. They have given the administration leeway on whether to fund the program partially or in full in November. That also brings uncertainty about how things will unfold and will delay payments for many beneficiaries whose cards would normally be recharged early in the month. The U.S. Department of Agriculture had planned to freeze payments to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program starting tomorrow, November the 1st, because it said it could no longer keep funding it due to the shutdown. This program is extremely important. It serves about 1 in 8 Americans. and is a major piece of the nation's social safety net. It costs about $8 billion per month nationally. So that's about $96 billion per year. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is a Minnesota Democrat and the ranking member of the Senate Agriculture Committee that oversees the food program, said on Friday that the rulings from the judges nominated to the bench by former President Barack Obama confirm what Democrats have been saying. The administration is choosing not to feed Americans in need despite knowing that it is legally required to do so. And this is what I've talked about too many times with this administration. The cruelty is the point. You have psychotic individuals like Stephen Miller, who from everything I've heard is Donald Trump's #1 advisor, a complete monster of a human being. Look him up. You don't believe me? Look up Stephen Miller. He is racist, he is classist, he is all those things. And generally a sociopath. In general, a sociopath. Literally one of the worst humans living. He is also one of the main people responsible for the unconscionable ICE raids that I've argued make the issue of illegal immigration worse than it actually does good. Especially for somebody like myself who's an immigration restrictionist, much in the vein of historically of Cesar Chavez, of A. Philip Randolph, of Coretta Scott King and Frederick Douglass and all those people who say that mass immigration hurts workers, particularly black and brown workers who are already at the bottom of the economic and political ladder, because it provides constant streams of low-wage laborers to compete with them in the labor force. This actually makes it worse because the cruelty that people like Stephen Miller operate with and the level of blatant lawlessness that they operate with actually creates a backlash. And now anybody who seems to be against these things tends to look like a psychotic individual, just an all-out horrible person. You know, and this is another one of those scenarios in which the cruelty, just like Alligator Alcatraz, where you had MAGA people joking about alligators eating people, you know, eating immigrants and things like that. These things are purposely cruel. They are purposely being cruel. And cutting SNAP benefits for millions of people, that means they know what they're doing. But I digress. Democratic state attorneys, attorney generals, or governors from 25 states, as well as the District of Columbia, challenged the plan to pause the program, contending that the administration has a legal obligation to keep it running in their jurisdictions. The administration said it wasn't allowed to use a contingency fund of about $5 billion for the program, which reversed a USDA plan before the shutdown that said money would be tapped to keep SNAP running. The Democratic officials argued that not only could that money be used, but that it must be used. They also said a separate fund with about $23 billion is available for the cause. In Providence, Rhode Island, U.S. District Judge John J. McConnell ruled from the bench in a case filed by cities and nonprofits that the program must be funded using at least the contingency funds, and he asked for an update on progress by Monday. Along with ordering the federal government to use emergency reserves to backfill SNAP benefits, McConnell ruled that all previous work requirement waivers must continue to be honored. The USDA during the shutdown has terminated existing waivers that exempted work requirements for older adults, veterans, and others. There were similar elements in the Boston case, where U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani ruled in a written opinion that the USDA has to pay for SNAP, calling the suspension unlawful. She ordered the federal government to advise the court by Monday as to whether they will use the emergency reserve funds to provide reduced SNAP benefits for November or fully fund the program using both contingency funds and additional available funds. Defendant's suspension of SNAP benefits was based on the erroneous conclusion that the contingency funds could not be used to ensure continuation of SNAP payments, she wrote in her decision. This court has now clarified that defendants are required to use those contingency funds as necessary for the SNAP program. Now, no matter how the ruling came down, the benefits for millions of people will be delayed in November because the process of loading cards can take a week or more in many states. The administration did not immediately say whether it would appeal the rulings. States, food banks, and SNAP recipients have been bracing for an abrupt shift in how low-income people can get groceries. Advocates and beneficiaries say halting the food aid would force people to choose between buying groceries and paying other bills. The majority of states have announced more or expedited funding for food banks or novel ways to load at least some benefits onto the SNAP debit cards. Across the U.S., advocates who have been sounding the alarm for weeks about the pending SNAP benefits cutoff let out a small sigh of relief on Friday as the rulings came down, while acknowledging the win is temporary. And that is important to say. This is just temporary, folks, and possibly not complete. Now, the possibility of reduced benefits may also mean more uncertainty. So again, this is just a temporary victory. I don't want everybody to get too happy here. Cynthia Kirkhart, who is the CEO of Facing Hunger, a food bank in Huntington, West Virginia, has said her organization and the pantries it serves in Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia will keep their extra hours this weekend, knowing that the people whose benefits usually arrive at the start of the month won't even see them. What we know, unless the administration is magical, is that nothing is going to happen tomorrow, she said. So a lot of the food banks in different parts are saying that they are ready for this. Also, this ruling does not resolve the partisan tussles that have caused this government shutdown, because at a Washington news conference earlier, Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins, whose department runs SNAP, says that contingency funds in questions would not cover the cost of the program for long. And it won't. You know, you're talking about $8 billion a month. There's only $5 billion in that contingency fund. So that's less than a month. So then everybody's not going to get their benefits, their proper benefits, with that $5 billion. Now, the Democrat says there's another $23 billion that can be tapped into. So you mix those two together, you get $28 billion, and that could get you, 3 months or so and some change. Speaking at a press conference with House Speaker Mike Johnson at the Capitol, she blamed the Democrats for conducting a disgusting dereliction of duty by refusing to end their Senate filibuster as they hold out for an extension of health care funds. A push this week to continue SNAP funding during the shutdown failed in Congress. To qualify for SNAP in 2025, a family of four's net income after certain expenses can't exceed the federal poverty line, which is about $31,000 per year. Wow. Last year, SNAP provided assistance to 41 million people, nearly 2/3 of whom were families with children. And that's important to say. That is important to say. I'm seeing a lot of clowns out there saying, well, you know, all these able-bodied people shouldn't be dependent on SNAP in the first. Dude, 40% of the people on SNAP are children. Children. 20% are elderly. That's 60%. Over 60% of the people are either children who can't work for obvious reason or the elderly. And the other people on SNAP are people who are disabled or have jobs that we as the American taxpayers subsidize. We subsidize Walmart and McDonald's and these other low-wage, low-paying jobs to have full-time workers that they don't pay. And that's why I talk about on this show regularly the amount of exploitation of American workers. In 1973, we talk about this regularly. 1973, the minimum wage took care of a family of 3. You could have a house, a car, a child, a husband, a wife, a child, and food to eat every day on the minimum wage salary. Now, there is no place in America where that is the case. If you make minimum wage or anything close to minimum wage, there is no place in America where you can even be a one-person family and eat every day on your own. And so you get a lot of people, especially older people who have not been in the job market for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, talking about, well, when I was working, I worked for minimum wage and I bought a car after working at McDonald's or a Dairy Queen for a summer. Yes, that's because the minimum wage when you were working was the equivalent of $24, $25 an hour today. You could do that then. Yes, you could pay for an entire year of college tuition after working in the mill for a summer. Yes, you could do that then. You cannot do that now. Everything is a lot more expensive. Eating is more expensive. College tuition is more expensive. Cars are more expensive. I just saw a billboard for a brand new Ford truck on the way over here. $33,000. $33,000. That's what you're paying for a brand new truck in 2025, going into 2026. That is more than the federal poverty line. We just did the story a few weeks ago, I think maybe it was a few months ago, where we talked about all the gains. $80 trillion has gone to the wealthiest people in the country since 1975 at the expense of working class people. If we just kept the same split that we had in the mid-70s between workers and capital, the same economic split, the working class in this country would have been $80 trillion wealthier over the last 50 years. That money is going so that Elon Musk can be a trillionaire. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Elon Musk is actually threatening the board of Tesla that if they don't give him $1 trillion over 10 years, he will quit the company. He wants $100 billion a year so he can be the first trillionaire in world history. That level of wealth inequality is completely unsustainable. But here we are. This is where we're at. And so instead of being mad at millions of children and senior citizens, the disabled, and people who are obviously being exploited, even though they're working 40 hours a week a lot of times at low-wage, low-skilled jobs, what we call low-skilled jobs. You should be getting mad at the people who have literally rigged this entire economy so that they make all of the wealth. And then they cry about paying taxes. They cry about paying taxes after rigging our entire economy. They buy off our politicians. They sent all the jobs overseas. They work the jobs that they claim Americans wouldn't work, even though Americans did work them for generations just at a living wage. And so it's important to not let yourself be a tool of the corporate capitalist elites. I may not be a socialist, but I'm sure as hell not about to allow to be a useful idiot for Donald Trump and for Elon Musk and, you know, George Soros and the elites that own and control everything. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. Oh, before I go to break, I wanted to say this. You guys, I want you guys who are dealing with food insecurity, I want you to know that there are places here in Gary and Northwest Indiana that were places you can go over the next few weeks that are giving food away. Here in Northwest Indiana, the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana in Maryville, tomorrow at 9 a.m. They are having a food giveaway. On Wednesday, November the 5th, at the East Chicago Lighthouse Charter School in East Chicago, at noon, they are having a food giveaway. On Thursday, November the 6th, at the Faith Bible Church in Lowell, they are having a food giveaway at 10 a.m. On Friday, November the 7th, 10 a.m. in Highland, they are having a food giveaway. In Highland, Our Lady of Grace Church. Next Saturday, again, the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana on Broadway in Maryville at 9 a.m. are having another giveaway. On Tuesday, November the 11th, Valparaiso Families YMCA in Valparaiso at 1 p.m. is having a food giveaway. On Wednesday, November the 12th, 11 a.m., Midwest Training and Ice Center in Dyer at 11 a.m. is having a food giveaway. On Thursday, November the 13th at 11 a.m. here in Gary, Indiana, the Tri-City Plaza, there will be a food giveaway. On Friday, November the 14th at noon, Lowell Church of Christ in Lowell, they are having one at noon. Again, on Saturday, November the 15th, the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana is having another giveaway at 9 a.m. on the 15th. So pretty much every Saturday, the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana in Maryville at 9 a.m. is having a food giveaway. On Monday, November the 17th at 3 p.m., Franciscan Health in Hammond on Holman Avenue is having a food giveaway at 3 p.m. On Tuesday, November the 18th at 3 p.m., the Lake County Fairgrounds in Crown Point is having a food giveaway at 3 p.m. On Wednesday, November the 19th at 3 p.m., the Living Hope Church, 9000 West Taft Street in Maryville is having another food giveaway. On Thursday, November the 20th at 4 p.m., Portage High School is having one at 4 p.m. So go to Portage High School on November the 20th at 4 p.m. And on Friday, November the 21st at 3 p.m., the Allen Law Group in Chesterton is having another food giveaway. So there are places all over Northwest Indiana, in Gary, Hammond, East Chicago, Lowell, Chesterton that are having food giveaways. Please, folks, stay safe. Stay safe. And our thoughts and prayers are with you here at WLTH. We are definitely rooting for everyone here to be healthy and happy and safe, and to get through this obviously turbulent time right before the holidays, man. This couldn't happen at a worse time. All right, folks. When we come back, we are going to get into the Republican Party trying to redraw the maps, the political maps here in the state of Indiana and around the country. Please stay with us here on Straight Out of the Cannon with me, Scott Cannon, here on the Regent's Choice and the People's Voice. We'll be right back after these.